Hi, my name is Victoria Padron, and I'll be presenting my final presentation for personal and social ethics class. So I'd like to start with the fact that we are assigned to connect scripture to ethics. So the first scripture that I'm connecting to ethics is Luke 6:31. Treat others as you would as you want them to treat yourself. I think that is very important when you live in a community setting that and you're a part of that community, that you portray yourself as a kind person, kind, generous, and in your, in your personality. That way, you'll be treated just the same way. It's sometimes it's very hard for Christians to remember that, and I feel like the more community involvement you have, the easier that gets. I do a lot of community involvement, so pulling on my good nature is something that I do regularly. However, we do forget, and I do have to remind myself at work to remain compassionate for those that are less equipped to get the job done. So another scripture that I'm tying ethically is lust. I feel it's really important. James 1:5 talks about when lust is conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin gives birth to death. Um, Ethically, morally, this all connects with yourself as a person and who you represent. This represents you as a Christian, and in a community setting, you also have to. It is not all about appearances, but the more you're out in the community and you deal with people, having control of your desires is really important. God doesn't want us, Jesus doesn't want us to go out and portray ourselves as anything but pure at heart. And, for many years I was living in the flesh, and I was going to church and continuously going to church and doing good, but living in the flesh, and it got me nowhere. It got me death, just as the scripture James 1:5 says. It brings death. It brought death, and so in order to get all that changed, I had to just give it all up, and so I did, and I haven't regretted it since. Um, so another scripture that I'm tying into ethics is Philippians 4:8. So finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is light, whatever is lovely, that's what we need to think on. Instead of letting negative thoughts consume our minds, instead of letting things that people say to us ruin our day, or we just keep replaying it in our minds, to arrest it and don't focus on negative thoughts. Focus on positive thoughts, pretty things. Sometimes it's not hard when I did live in the flesh to get all that stuff out of my head. First, I had to get rid of it, and then I had to arrest the negative thoughts. The devil wants to come in and just bring us down, and I know that I've been forgiven. However, the most important thing is to forgive ourselves and to remind ourselves that we are forgiven, and forgive yourself over and over. Because if you don't feel like if you keep asking for forgiveness for the same sin, it's like we don't trust what God and Jesus are doing for us. And so, therefore, I know that He has forgiven me. So, with that being said, I'm controlling my thought process and not letting negative things come into my mind is huge. It affects my morale and affects me ethically as well. One of the ethical issues that I dealt with was in the business arena. In my clinic, it brought this chapter on business ethics brought me a lot of understanding. And I'll just read from what I wrote. The ethical decision regarding business is a topic I deal with almost every day at work. The chapter brought understanding and clarity, which supported my decision to stand against ethically wrong situations. I have a boss who likes to do things her way and not procedural way. So she's new, and she doesn't. If she did understand the policies, she didn't care about the policies, and so she would ask us to do things that we were already taught that is against policy. So she would we would have to stand firm. I for one I stood firm against her, and some of the things that she asked me to do, and it cost me a relationship with my manager, and which is her, and so she just puts us on the back burner, so to speak. However, that's okay, because I feel good that I stood against her request to do unethical business practices, and this book, this chapter on ethics, taught me all that. So I just want to say I appreciate that very much. Let's see, another ethical problem that I dealt with, that I thought was interesting, was the euthanasia, the self-suicide, doctor assist suicide, mercy killing. I was undecided when it came to mercy killing. However, after reading Moral Choices by Ray, 2006, I have a different take on this controversial matter. Ray writes, euthanasia means good death. However, the Bible writes that timing and manner of a person's death belongs ultimately to God, and I would strongly feel that it is God's will when it is His time. And that means whether we like it or not. I lost my son not too long ago, and I just have to hold on to the fact that it was God's will. It was His time. However, when I see an aunt or an uncle who's in their 80s and 90s passing away, it's a little bit different. I still rejoice because I know it's their time and they're going to heaven. So when their children are mourning over them, I'm rejoicing because I know that they're going to everlasting life. They're going to paradise, and they're going to see each other again. And so whatever, the whole deal on the mercy killing, it just brought some awakening to me. And I don't want to see anybody suffer. But on the other hand, I just feel like it is God's will for whenever it's time to go. It's totally up to Him. An ethical issue I would like to help with is reproduction. I know I read it that there's all kinds of stipulations biblically on reproduction. However, I feel that my choice would be that if I was going to help in any issue, it would be reproduction. And if I had the ability to do in vitro fertilization for a family member, I would do it. It would be totally free. I wouldn't charge them anything. However, they would pay for my doctors and my well-being while I was carrying their baby. So that is one ethical issue that I had to read about and think about, and that's one that I would help with if I could, because I feel like we can't play God, so we can't figure out why God has them barren. That's not for us to decide. However, if you're on this earth and you're here, then and you're married and you're a good couple and God chose you guys to be married and under Him, and procreation is part of that. So I would definitely help in that part. Another undecided issue would be the business ethics. That one kind of got me in a loophole. I understand that there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle when it comes to this. For instance, in our book, in Ray's 2006, he says that in this international business deal, it involved the workers, the company, the shareholders, and basically the company never wrote anything in their policy regarding paying out pledges. So I would have to really read and gather information legally and base my decision on that, because it has to do with a lot of people, and I need to separate the fact that are my moral issues getting in the way from me making this decision for the company and the people in the whole. And so that's one undecided issue that I came up against. Another ethical issue, helping another work through an ethical decision. I chose to use 7 steps to help distinct between competing options when faced with difficult choices. I found this article in Making Ethical Decisions, a 7-step path. So there's different things to go by: stop and think, clarify goals, determine facts, develop options, make a decision, and monitor and modify. So I would find a tool to help aid in an ethical decision, and make sure that I would be there to guide whomever into making the right choices and giving them the correct tools to do it. A lot of times people just don't have the right tools. So in conclusion, I've dealt with topics covered: scripture linked to ethics, ethical issues regarding business decision, ethical issues deciding mercy killing, ethical issues regarding international business, how I would go about helping others. So at this time, is there any questions? All right, well, it's been my pleasure. And this is Victoria Padron ending her final. Thank you.